All right, as we get started today, we do have a test coming up in our next lesson. So we need to make sure we're ready for that test. Go and turn in your supplements to page 33. Turn your supplements to page 33. You will have a large section of terms that you will need to identify. What we have here is a small listing of terms. There's only about 15 questions that I asked you for homework last night. I trust that you took my advice and you went back and you read through all the blurbs. So that way you are reviewing all the terms, not just the few that I asked here. Okay, because it won't necessarily just be these select terms, but you'll have a large section of terms to know tomorrow. Make sure you know them. I would also encourage you, I've been telling you all along, save the quizzes that I pass back to you. Because on each of the quizzes there have been terms. And those are a good indicator of the terms you need to know. Now, there is some stuff that hasn't been quizzed yet. Water bottle. I haven't quizzed you on anything related to income tax yet. I haven't quizzed you on anything related to FICA tax yet. Okay, so as far as, looking over quizzes, just realize FICA taxes, income tax, that has not been quizzed. I've quizzed up through sales tax. Okay, so the other part has not been quizzed. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to look through my quizzes. If you only go off quizzes to study, you're missing the income tax and FICA tax. So that's stuff we've done a lot with recently. Should be pretty good with there. Hold up your booklets if you would so that I can see that page 33 is completed. Hold them up so I can see page 33. Excellent. Good, you can put them down. Let's take a look at these together. Number one, taking money out of a bank account. What do we call that, Corey? A withdrawal, letter R. Very good. Number two, a person who hires and pays someone else. Luciana. H, an employer. Good. Number three, a fee charged for the use of money. Bryson.
No.
Number three, what's your answer? Not salary. No, a salary is not fee charged for the use of money. Number three, Griffin. M, interest. Interest. You use someone else's money, they're going to want interest, unless it's a really, really, really good friend. Okay? Most people, if you use their money for any reason, they're going to want not just their money back, they're going to want some interest with it. Let's see, number four, a set amount of payment that a worker receives at regular intervals. What do we call that, Michael?
Salary.
Letter P, a salary. Very good. Every 2 weeks or every month or twice a month, this is how much you're going to get. Doesn't matter how much you work, this is how much you're getting. That's a salary, a set amount of money. Number five, putting money into a bank account, Jalen. F, that's a deposit. Good, F. Number six, a plan to spend money wisely. Elaine.
D, budget.
D, a budget. Very good. Number seven, a check that's written for more money than is in the corresponding account. Joel. Number seven.
K.
No, it has nothing to do with Form W-4, a check. You write a check, but you don't have that much money. So you, the account holder, write a check. It's supposed to not be for more than what's in your account. If you only have $100 in your account, you can't write a $200 check. So a check, you have to actually think about the words, not just put down a guess. A check that's written for more money than in the corresponding account, Kirsten?
C.
C, a bounced check. A bounced check. The bank ain't going to pay it out if you ain't got that much. And it's a bounced check. I mean, if it's a little over, they might cover it and then charge you an overdraft fee. But in general, they'll bounce that check. Number eight, form stating wages paid to and taxes withheld from a worker last year. Ben? What you got for number eight?
L.
It is not L. It's not your gross pay. Now, the wages paid to would essentially be gross pay, but it's a form that tells how much the gross pay was and tells how much taxes were withheld. Let's go back to Bryson. It's not the W-4, Joel.
It's a W-2.
J, the W-2. J, the W-2 says this is how much you were paid, this is how much was withheld. Okay, so that's your W-2 form. Number nine, the amount of money borrowed or loaned for number 9. Let's go back to Ben.
A.
You're guessing. Don't do that on the test tomorrow. If you did not know these, you should have looked them up. It doesn't help you to just throw down a guess. Amount of money borrowed or loaned. Let's come back to Bryson. No, it's not an amortized loan. It's not a money that you borrow or loan. Let's go back to Corey.
O.
Oh, that's the principal. Oh, remember I equals PRT. The principal is the amount of money that is borrowed. Need to make sure we're looking these up. If we don't know them, making me nervous for tomorrow. Number 10, amount of payment a worker receives per hour worked. Let's see. Let's go back to Ben.
This one's L.
No, because you don't well, not necessarily. You don't actually get this money is the thing. So I can kind of see where you're going with gross pay. There's a better one though. Per hour worked. There's a certain term for per hour worked. Let's go back to Bryson. Q, that's wages. Wages is per hour worked. Gross has the idea of before something's withheld. And that wasn't the thing being asked there, but I can see where you're coming on with on that. Let's see, number 11, purchases paid over time in equal monthly payments and includes a finance charge. All right, here we go.
And
Purchases? Overtime wages? That doesn't make sense. Purchases paid over time? Oh, you saw the words overtime. I say, okay, you got to read the whole thing though. A purchase that's paid over time in equal monthly payments. So you pay back the bank the same amount every month for this car. There's a finance charge in there.
interest.
Well, the finance charge is interest. Jalen? A, an amortized loan. An amortized loan has equal monthly payments. Okay, an amortized loan. Some of us have a lot of studying to do tonight. A portion of a purchase price that is paid up front. Portion of a purchase price that is paid up front. Michael?
E.
E, a down payment. E, a down payment. That kind of ties in with the amortized loan. Number 14, 150% higher hourly payment given to workers for working more than 40 hours. They work more than 40 hours. I should say 150% of their usual hourly payment. It's 50% higher. But the 150% is the key, and it's more than 40 hours is the key, Bryson. That's N, overtime wages. N, overtime wages. Number 15, Social Security and Medicare taxes. It's 7.65% of adjusted gross income. And really, I guess technically one could argue it's gross income, but well, no, because it really is adjusted gross income. Kirsten. I, that's the FICA taxes. I, the FICA taxes.
Can we go over 13?
I'm sorry, somehow we skipped 13. Not sure how we did that. Number 13, thank you, sir. The amount of money in a bank account. Jalen. B, the balance. Sorry, so yeah, number 12 is E, 13 is B, the balance. Number 14, that's N, and then number 15, I. Sorry about that. How many went 15 for 15? All right, how many of you got 13 or 14 right? Just missed 1 or 2. All right, make sure we study. But again, don't just study these terms. This is only a small sampling of the terms that we've covered. Make sure you know your terms. Skim through, find the bold term, find the definition. Drill it. Maybe make flashcards if you need to. I'm not giving you any written homework tonight. Okay? So, if you need to, do that. Make flashcards, terms, definitions, write them down. Yes, ma'am?
So another 14 is 150 higher hourly.
The key there is it's 150%, should be 150% of their usual hourly wage, right? 1.5 times what their normally hourly wage is. It's technically 50% higher. But the 150% was what I was going for there. Not perhaps the best way in which I worded that, to be honest. But also the key there was more than 40 hours. That's overtime. Okay. Good. Other questions, comments on those? All right. Turn the page if you would, please. We're going to get to page 34 here in just a moment. There are some things in here that we haven't looked at in a little while I want to cover with you. But there are a couple of other things. Most of the test, you've got a big section of terms, and there's a big section of just miscellaneous problems. Based on what I've taught you, do you know how to work with the money? But there's a couple of little sections you're going to see on your test, and one of them is very simply finding budgeted amounts. So real quick, if you have maybe a scrap sheet of paper, go ahead and get that out. We're going to get to page 34 here in just a moment. But let's suppose you have a disposable income. What's another term for disposable income, class? Net income, okay, or net pay. You've got a disposable income or net income of, let's just say, $4,200. Okay, so you probably make closer to about $5,500 in the month, but the government takes a good portion of that, so you end up with $4,200 that you can actually choose how you're going to allocate it. And let's suppose that you give to the Lord, we'll say give to your church, this is tithe, missions, love offerings, that kind of thing. Let's say you give 16%. At your seats, find out how much money you'll be giving to the church. Again, really not giving to the church, giving to God through the church. Let's be clear on that. And the reason that's important, by the way, is you might be tempted one time. Satan might tempt you with this thought. Well, the church isn't really using the money wisely. Why should I give it to them? You're not giving it to them. You're giving it to God. You're giving it through the church. Now, if you think there's an issue, of course, you can talk to your pastor or even find another church. But remember that money really is being given to God through the church. So you still give it, even if you feel like maybe things aren't being handled well. But certainly, talk to pastor or deacons, whatever, if that were to be the case. How much is going to the Lord every month? Joel?
$672.
Good. How many had $672? $672. Let's suppose your mortgage payment. Again, what's the mortgage payment for, class? Your house, right? It goes to pay for your house. Let's suppose your mortgage payment is 21% of your disposable income. How much is your mortgage payment every month here? Bryson? Careful, what do we need to do to find, if the mortgage payment's 21%, what do we need to multiply? Yeah, what do we multiply? Tell me.
4,200 times 0.12, or
Maybe that's what maybe put a 0.12. 0.21, try it one more time. So you do know what you're doing. It's maybe a keystroke error or something.
882.
There we go, $882. How many had that answer? There. All right, let's suppose you spend on food every month. Food, groceries, whatever. Let's suppose you spend 19% of your disposable income on food. What amount are you spending on food? And this is a lot on food. Did pretty well with this. Corey?
$798.
$798. Let's suppose you put in savings the recommended minimum of 5%. How much money goes into savings every month? Ben?
210.
Good, $210. You need to be able to do this tomorrow. Find budgeted amounts, okay? You get a little section kind of like this. Another thing you need to be able to do is work with the simple interest formula, class, which is I equals?
PRT.
Again, P stands for the?
Principal.
That's the amount of money that you borrow. Or if you're on the other side of it, loan. The R stands for the?
Rate.
But you have to write it as a? Decimal. So you have to go?
Point.
The time has to be in? Years. So if it's given in years, you good. If it's not given in years, you got to change it. Okay? For instance, let's suppose you borrowed $50,000. And let's suppose you have a rate of 6%. And let's suppose you have 6 years to pay off the $50,000. You're buying a pretty decent car with $50,000. A nice little sports car there, maybe, and or maybe a nice SUV with all the bells and whistles, whatever. 6-year loan, 6%. Again, technically this would be an amortized loan, is how you actually take it out. But for our purposes, let's just figure simple interest. What would that be? How much interest would you be paying on this loan, Kirsten?
$18,000.
$18,000. How many had $18,000? All right, again, we've got to multiply the 50,000, class, not by 6%, but by 0.06, and then we multiply that by 6. What if we were to borrow $120,000 to buy a house? And let's suppose our interest rate for the house was 5.5%. And let's suppose we agreed to pay it back. Now, technically, again, this would be amortized, but for our purposes, let's just say we pay it back after 3 decades. Now, again, you don't pay it back after 3 decades. You're going to make equal monthly payments in an amortized loan, so it's not going to be quite this much interest. But let's just suppose, for whatever reason, you say, hey, I'll pay you back in 3 decades. How much interest would you have to pay on a $120,000 home? Luciana?
$198,000.
$198,000. That's just the interest. You also have to pay back 120 grand. Yeah, you pay back more in interest than you do on the house at that point. Aren't you glad it's not actually simple interest they charge, but amortizing the loan there? Question? Okay, you ready for the answer? Let's suppose you borrowed $587 and you're paying 19% interest for 3 months. Maybe something like a credit card purchase. How much interest would you pay back? Michael?
$27.88.
$27.88. There was a 2 after that, but it's not enough to bump it up. So we'll say $27.88 in interest. As far as the time here, 3 months, class, what do you have to change that to? 1/4, or divided by 4. Just like the 3 decades, class, you would have had to change to
30 years.
30 years, right? Question?
So, like, I understand if it's 3 months, you have to change it to 1/4 and divide by 4, whatever.
Or 0.25. You could change times 0.25 if you wanted.
But what if it's something like 2/3 or something like that?
Yeah, I won't give you something. For instance, 8 months, right, would be 2/3. For our purposes, I'm not going to do that to you. Technically, what you do is you multiply the 2, and then you do what the fraction bar says. You divide by 3. Right? So if you had times 5/7 or something obscene, that means times 5 divided by 7. That's why I teach you a fraction bar means division. We're not quite far enough into your algebra training to be able to do that just yet, but that's what you will do. For instance, in physics, we do it with all kinds of weird fractions. That's exactly what they do. You just do times numerator divided by denominator. Okay. Good question. Do we understand how to use the simple interest formula? All right, now, there will be one problem, I believe, on the test dealing with compound interest. So let's look at page 34 at the top of the page. Read that problem for us, if you would. Please, Kirsten.
Peyton's parents put $5,000 into a certificate of deposit that earns 5.5% interest compounded quarterly. Find her compound interest after 1 year. What will be the value of the CD after 1 year?
All right, so remember, compound interest, class. We add the interest back onto the principal. It earns interest, and that interest gets added on, so you begin earning interest on interest. Have a loose sheet of paper out. If you didn't already have one, get one out now, because there's not going to be very much room to work right here. We start by using the simple interest formula, I equals PRT. And she's going to earn interest how often?
Quarterly.
Quarterly. What does quarterly mean, class? 1/4. 1/4 of a year. Every 4th of a year, which is 3 months, she gonna get interest. So, when I plug in the numbers to I equals PRT, the P is how much she has in the certificate of deposit. Class?
5,000.
5 grand. Her rate should be written as a decimal. Class?
0.055.
0.055. And you'll want to write these down right along with me. On the test tomorrow, you'll want to make sure you write down everything you do. Did you listen to what I just said? On the test tomorrow, you're going to want to write down everything you do. Now, the calculator is going to actually do it for you, but you're going to write down everything. If you think I should multiply, then write down what you're multiplying. If you think I should subtract, write down what you're subtracting. Don't just do it on the calculator, because what if you hit a wrong key and you get a wrong answer and I see no work? You lose all the points. I can't help you. But if you've shown every little step and you did everything right, you knew exactly what to do, and you just had a keystroke error, I'd give you most of the credit, right? So show the work. So right now we're going to show that we know to multiply 5,000 by 0.055. Now what's the time, class? 1/4, or divided by 4. You could write either one of those, okay? You could even write 0.25, okay? So if you have a calculator and you know how to figure out the fractions, you don't want to say times 1/4, you can. It's not the lazy way. The laziest way is divided by 4. You could also do times 0.25. I just think it's lazier to say divided by 4. And that's going to give how much interest in the first quarter of the year. How much interest does Peyton get in the first quarter of the year? $68.75. Now, what do I do with that number?
Add it on to the principal.
Add it on to the 5,000. So how much does she actually have in the CD as we start the second quarter?
$5,068.75.
Everyone got that? She ain't got 5,000 anymore. Now she's got 5,068.75. And that's now going to earn 5.5% interest, boink, boink, 0.055. And in the second quarter, what's the time? 1/4. So once again, we're going to divide by 4. Now here we're going to have to round, because it's money, 2 decimal places. Joel, how much interest does Peyton get in the second quarter?
$69.70.
Good, we're going to bump it up to a 70 cents there. 69.70. How many also had 69.70 when you round? Okay, that gets added on. So that Bryson, how much does Peyton have in her account as she starts the third quarter of this year?
$5,138.45.
Excellent. And that gets multiplied by the 5.5% interest rate. That gets divided by 4. How much interest does she get paid at the end of the third quarter? What's her interest at the end of the third quarter, Jalen?
$70.64.
All right, how many got the same answer when you rounded? $70.65. Again, we're showing all this work. Okay, we're writing it all down. That way we don't make careless mistakes, and that way there's partial credit in case we do have some little mistake. All right, so that's through 3 quarters. We start the fourth quarter, the last quarter of the year. What's her account balance? What's the principal as she starts the fourth quarter, Corey?
$5,209.10.
All right, and that gets multiplied by the interest rate. That gets divided by 4. How much interest does she get at the end of the fourth quarter? And let's go to Griffin.
I'm still trying to catch up with all the numbers. And
All right, gotta be fast, gotta be fast. 2 types of people in math class, the quick and the dead. Just kidding.
I'm both.
Just kidding, just kidding. We don't kill people, we're not being quick. Elaine?
$71.63.
Rounds to $71.63. So that's how much is earned at the end of the fourth quarter. Now question, class. How much time has actually elapsed?
A year.
A full year. Does that make sense? The first quarter's done, the second quarter's done, the third quarter's done, the fourth. This is all a span of 1 year in total. Does that make sense? It broke into 4 different quarters. Yes, sir.
Couldn't you just multiply it by 1 year if you knew it was gonna?
Well let's do that real quick, class. Let's say I equals P R T. If they had only said we're going to pay out at the end of the year, we're not going to pay every quarter. We're just going to pay at the end of the year. Real quick, what would she have made in interest if they didn't compound it? If they just said at the end of the year we'll pay you this, how much does she get then?
275.
Anyone else get $275? Okay, but now if you would, at your seats, add up these numbers. This is interest she got at the end of the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. How much interest did she actually get? Because it compounded. And this is the answer to the first letter. Letter A, find her compound interest after 1 year. Michael?
$280.73.
Now let me ask you, Ben, would you rather have $275 or would you rather have $280.73?
I'd rather do the easier one.
I can't help you then. $280.73. How many have that for the interest she actually earned? Okay? Now again, imagine if the money was greater, or imagine if she just continues to leave that in year after year after year instead of just leaving the CD in for a year. Most, a lot of CDs are 12-month CDs, but you could renew it, let it build on, just continue to grow and grow. So here's the next question. What's the CD worth when she cashes it out? Well, how much was it worth when she first put it in, class?
$5,000.
And how much interest has she earned?
$280.73.
So what's the value of the CD now after all this time has passed?
$5,280.73.
$5,280.73, right? Just the 5,000 plus the interest. Yes, sir.
For some reason, I'm looking at your work, and for the fourth quarter,
Yep.
the principal that we have, I don't have that, but I still got $71.63.
Did you add 7065 to 5,138.45?
I think so.
Again, might have just had a keystroke error there, but should have added those two amounts together there. All right, any other questions while he's recalculating? Any other questions on that? All right, look at the next problem, number 17, and read this for us if you would, Elaine.
Mr. Jackson put $2,000 into a 529 college savings.
That's not a five, it's just called a 529. It's a tax deferred savings account. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So into a 529 college savings account for his daughter. This account earns 8% interest compounded annually. How much will be in the college fund after 5 years?
All right, so let's just say hypothetically that in 5 years his daughter is ready for college. Question is, he puts 2,000 in. That's not that much, especially when we think about the price of college these days. But he puts a couple thousand in there, and this college savings account earns 8% interest compounded class annually. What does annually mean?
Yearly.
So what's the time going to be?
1 year.
1. Right, time's going to be 1. Now, how many times is she going to get interest on this savings account? 5 times, right? Every year. So our first year, we got to figure the interest. So at your seats, figure how much interest she gets at the end of the first year when they pay out. And this is the way Ben wanted it, right? He wanted annual payments. So here we go, Ben. We got annual payments. How much interest does she get at the end of the first year?
I haven't finished typing.
Type it in. Let's go. We want to be quick, not dead.
160.
$160. Okay, so then when year number 2 begins, she doesn't have 2,000 anymore. How much does she have now?
2,160.
2,160. How much interest does Mr. Jackson's daughter get on this college savings account at the end of her second year, Kirsten?
$172.80.
All right, how many also got 172.80? All right, so then we start the third year. Well, remember, she ain't got 2,000. Now she's got more than that. What's she up to now, Joe?
She's up to 2,332 and
80 cents. There you go, $2,332.80. So at the end of the third year, this account earns interest. How much interest do they pay out at the end of year number 3? Elaine?
$186.62.
There we go. We go into year number 4. Let's see. This, if 5 years, that means the student is probably starting junior year. Okay, she's starting junior year of high school. How much does Mr. Jackson's daughter have in her college savings account as she starts her junior year of high school? Jalen? All right, let's go and get there. Michael?
$2,519.42.
There we go. Should have $2,519.42. And at the end of the junior year, they pay out. How much interest does she get at the end of junior year? Jalen, are you caught up with us yet? You're about to. Griffin, are you caught up? What you got?
For the interest?
At the end of year 4, end of her junior year.
$201.55.
$201.55. Okay, so she starts her senior year. This is the 5th and final year of this college savings account because she's about to cash it out in a year when she gets ready to go to college. What is the value? What is the balance, the principal now as we start year number 5? Bryson?
$2,720.97.
Yes. I'm not sure what I did. I did something wrong. Huh. All right, times 0.08, and I think I'm going to have to amend my answer key here because what you said is right and what I had is slightly wrong. I think the interest will probably be pretty similar here. It could potentially affect this answer. All right, how much interest, Luciana, does Mr. Jackson's daughter get as she finishes her senior year?
$217.68.
$217. How many had 68 cents also? Okay, yeah, I figured I'd be a few cents off since I was a little off on my addition. Okay, so now it's time to cash it out. What is it worth now? What's it worth now? We'll get this from Corey. How much does she have in her college savings account?
$2,138.65. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yes. Yes. I'm really not. Yeah, okay. All right. All right, $2,938.65. Again, 5 years earlier, what did she have, class? $2,000. Now she's got $2,900. She made almost $1,000 doing nothing, but letting the interest just grow and grow and grow. Questions on number 17? Do we feel like we got the compound interest thing now? Because I know that was a challenge for us earlier. Want to kind of hit it with a couple more problems here since that was one of our harder concepts. All right, let's move on to number 18 and read number 18 for us if you would. Let's see here. Luciana, nice and loud.
Mrs. Hernandez is a pharmacist who is paid an annual salary of $98,000. A. Find her FICA tax. If she uses standard deduction of $13,000 and $250, find her taxable income. C. If she pays 24% federal income tax, find her income tax. D. What is her monthly net pay?
All right, it is possible. She's Mrs. Hernandez, and so you would suggest married woman. She's using the single standard deduction, though, so she might be married filing separately. It might be a situation where maybe she's a widow, husband passed away, so she's considered single at this point. Anyway, annual salary of $98,000. Now, that's assuming her gross salary, right? Over the course of the year, every time she's paid, FICA tax is withheld. What percent, class?
7.65.
We can go back at the end of the year and figure out what that amount would have been. So let's figure out at the end of the year, letter A, what was the FICA that has already been taken out of her paychecks throughout the course of the year. Again, this isn't something you would generally pay at the end of the year. This is something that would have been taken out all throughout the year by whoever owns the pharmacy. They'd have done this on her behalf. Ben, you got it? Then let's be working. Don't just be sitting there. Come on. Let's go to Jalen.
$7,497.
There we go, $7,497. We just multiply 0.0765 by the $98,000 gross pay that she earned. Now, letter B. Remember, she's going to claim the standard deduction of $13,850. So therefore, if that can be deducted from her gross pay, what is her taxable income? What is her taxable income? What are they going to tax her on? Joel?
$84,150.
Good. $84,150 is her taxable income. Does that make sense? They don't charge her taxes on the $98,000. FICA tax they do. But the income tax doesn't get charged on the $98,000. It gets charged on the $84,000. Well, the $84,000 is high enough. She's in the 24% tax bracket. So letter C, how much federal income tax is she supposed to pay? And again, a large portion of this has probably been taken out throughout the year already, okay? The government already knows what the amounts are. They've kind of, well, through the employer, through the W-4, they've been taking out income tax all throughout the year, most probably. How much is her income tax over the course of the year, Bryson?
20,500.
Here we go, $20,196. We just multiply 0.24 by the taxable income. How many had the 20 grand? 196, 20,196. All right, if you had a higher number, you probably took 24% of the gross pay. Don't take 24% of the gross, take it to the taxable. Remember, there's a free $13,850 that everybody gets before they start paying taxes. So the government's like, we're not going to tax that, we'll just tax the $84,150. All right, so the government took this out throughout the course of the year. The government probably took this out or close to it throughout the course of the year. So the question is, letter D, how much does she get to keep? What's her net pay? What's her net pay? She earns 98, but the government takes this and the government takes this. So what is her net pay? That's the next question. Kirsten?
$70,307.
All right, do we get the same net pay? Again, all we got to do is subtract. But notice what it says on letter D. It doesn't ask for her annual net pay. It says what is her monthly net pay. So what do I have to do now with my net pay answer? Class? Divide by 12. And when we do, Jalen, what's our final answer?
$5,858.91.
I had it rounded up to 92 cents, but there we go. Questions on this? Are we starting to feel comfortable with FICA tax, taxable income, the deductions, all that stuff? Starting to get comfortable with those numbers. Questions on problem 18? All right, number 19. Overtime for some of us continues to be just a little bit tricky, so let's do another overtime problem. Make sure we're good to go with this. And let's have Michael read number 19.
Miss Holly is a flight attendant who makes $17 an hour. Several of her coworkers were sick last week and she worked 52 hours. Find her gross pay. Assume the standard overtime rate.
All right. 17 an hour is pretty decent pay. If you don't mind dealing with obnoxious people who, you know. Anyway, how many of you have flown before? How many on your flight, everybody was just super nice and wonderful. They minded their own business. There were no issues. How many have been on a flight, though, where somebody was a real, you know, we won't use that word to describe them, but you know what we're talking about. They're one of those kind of people that make the flight attendants miserable. Well, anyway, so it's kind of a mixed bag. Well, Miss Holly here ends up working 52 hours one week. Some of her coworkers are out. They need her to work extra. And she's like, well, you know, why not? And so the question is, how much is her gross pay? Well, remember, I don't just multiply anything by 52, do I, class? No. I'm going to multiply two different numbers. First, I'm going to multiply something by 40. Then I'm going to multiply something by 12. At your seats, do 19. At your seats, go all the way through number 19. Find her total pay. Are those questions or are those we already got it? Already got it. Several of you. Good. Regular wages, overtime wages. What gets multiplied by 40, class? 17. Because that's how much she gets per hour. $17 per hour times 40 hours. How much does she earn in her regular work week, Bryson? 680. How many had 680? Her regular wages, straightforward, there's your 40 hours, whatever. Okay. Now, what is the overtime rate going to be? Joel?
25.5%.
Well, let's call that money. So let's say money.
Dollars.
And so $25 and
50
there we go, and 50 cents. That's how much she's making per hour, and that she does that for 12 hours. So how much does she make in? How many have the 25.50 by the way? You have the 25.50. All right, so we multiply that by 12. Then how much does she earn for her overtime work?
$306.
Good, $306. So then, what is her gross pay?
$986.
$986. How many had $986? All right, for 1 week, that's real good. Now, granted, most people don't want to end up working 52 hours a week, but for that week, she did pretty good for herself. Questions on overtime? We all still feel comfortable now with overtime. All right, and Number 20. Number 20, read that for us, Corey.
Mr. Grosley was a service tech making $15 an hour. He just got promoted to service manager and is now making $22 an hour. If he works 40 hours a week, how much more will he make? How much will he make each week now compared to before?
Okay, all right. So he was making how much an hour when he was just a service tech? That means he's the guy who drives around and fixes things for people, whether it's, air conditioning that needs servicing or electronic service, whatever. Well, he gets promoted to service manager, so he's like in charge of the service tech, so that comes with a pay raise. All right, so assuming the normal 40 hours a week, he was getting 15 an hour, right? So how much was he making in a given week? And I shouldn't say making. How much was he earning? He didn't actually get it, of course, because the government takes their portion, but how much was he getting back in the day before the promotion, Corey?
$600.
$600. How many at 600 is what he was making? But now the same 40 hours, he doesn't get 600 anymore. How much does he get at the end of the week now that he got his promotion? Griffin?
Well,
remember, now he's promoted. He's getting 22 an hour. So if he still works 40 hours, just as a service manager instead of service tech,
$880.
he's getting $880. How many at $880 now? But the question says, how much more will he be making now compared to before? So what's my last step to make this comparison, Joel?
Subtract.
Just subtract. And the answer is $280 more. How many? $280 more now that he got that promotion. All right, questions on that? Obviously, you extrapolate that over, say, 50 work weeks. Most people get a couple weeks of vacation. Just multiply that by 50, and he's doing all right for himself, I suppose. All right, or that's that much more, I should say. All right, questions on that? All right, in the time we've got left, let's go and flip through the book together and just quickly highlight some things. And this is something that you should have done last night already on your own. Let's go all the way back to page 1. And if you want to jot this down on your review notes, pages 1 to 34. Pages 1 to 34, that's what we're looking over. Those are the pages for the test tomorrow. All right, page 1, we got income. Remember, that's money that you make. The person who hires and pays people is the
Employer.
The person who gets hired and gets paid is the
Employee.
If you get paid a set amount every month,
Salary.
if you get paid per hour,
Wages.
if you serve people and they give you a little extra, that's a
Tip.
If you get paid per job that's completed, that's
Piecework.
piecework.
Wages.
What you actually earn, you don't actually get it. What you earn is the,
Gross pay.
and then what you get to keep is the
Net pay.
net pay. If you work over 40 hours, you get,
Overtime.
and overtime is, what's that little phrase?
Time and a half.
Time and a half. If you sell stuff, we're on page 5 by now. If you sell stuff and you get a percentage of what you sell, that's called commission. That's usually done in addition to what you make through some salary or wages. The bank account that does most of the transactions in a given day. Most of your transactions go through your checking account, but it's good to also have money set aside in a
Savings.
just in case you need it. Putting money into an account,
Deposit.
taking money out,
Withdraw.
withdrawal. We haven't used this in a while. I don't think this is on the test, but if the money automatically goes in, that's
Direct
called
deposit.
EFT or direct deposit, electronic funds transfer, direct deposit. The amount of money in the account is called the balance. An order to the bank to pay money. Check. What's the number that identifies the bank? The transit number or the routing number. I heard both of those. Once a check has been paid, the money has gone into this person's account and come out of your account, that says cleared. And if you didn't have enough and the bank says, nope, not paying it, bounced. A fee paid for the use of money.
Sales tax.
Interest.
Fee charged for the use of money.
Interest.
Interest. Good. The money borrowed?
Principal.
Principal. How many days in a commercial year?
360.
360. If you earn interest on interest, we're talking about
Compound.
compound interest. A plan to spend money wisely.
Budget.
Budget. The net pay that you have to plan for in the budget is also called?
Disposable income.
Good. What percent should you tithe?
10%.
And of course, giving more to God is always good. How much should you save? 5%. We talked about tracking a budget, where you figure, okay, this is how much is budgeted, how much we already spent. For instance, let's go back to that 4,200 that we started with at the beginning of the hour. And we said that we were going to spend 19% on food. What is that number again? Either refine it or find it on your paper that you already wrote, Corey?
798.
I think I remember $798. Y'all remember $798? All right, well, let's suppose you went to the grocery store and you spent $112.37. How much is still available in your food budget? What do we have to do, class?
Subtract.
Just subtract what we spent and what's left.
$685.63.
Thank you. There we go. So tracking a budget, we should be able to do problems like that. Buying on time, where you make equal monthly payments. That's called? An amortized loan, installment buying, something like that, right? At those terms, the amount you pay up front? Down payment. And remember, we said you don't want to miss those monthly payments. That could be problematic if you miss your monthly payment, hurts your credit score. When you buy something, a percentage, a portion of the purchase price goes to the government. Usually the state, county, and sometimes city government. This is called sales tax. Usually food is charged at a different rate. So let's suppose you spend $73.28 at the store. And let's suppose food was, let's just say $61.12. Well, how much was not food? Somebody find it. If you spent $12.16? All right, how do we get that? We just subtract. If this is the total and this much was food, well, that's how much must be non-food, right? Well, let's suppose food is taxed at a 4% rate. How much tax you got to pay on the food?
$2.44.
Someone confirm? 244? You like that number?
Yeah.
All right, and let's suppose non-food is charged at an 8% rate. How much tax you pay on non-food?
97 cents.
Somebody else got 97?
Yeah.
All right, so you paid this much for all your stuff, but you also paid these amounts in taxes. How would you figure how much you pay total? Add the total for the stuff plus the total in the taxes, and do that real quick. $76.69?
Yeah.
$76.69. We like that number?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to be able to do that tomorrow. Break it into two categories as needed. I don't think you're going to have to know this, but remember the vehicle sales tax is title ad valorem tax, where you're taxed on the value of the vehicle.
Wait, what?
IRS. It was just a bold term I'm hitting on page 22. I don't think that's on the test. Page 24. Internal Revenue Service. We abbreviate it? IRS. And they're who we pay our taxes to. All right, here we go. There's 3 forms to know. Which one is from the employer to the employee, saying this is how much you earned, this is how much tax you've already paid? What's that form, class?
W-2.
W-2. Which form is from you to the IRS? That uses your W-2 that says, this is how much I made, these are all my other investments or things that I put into retirement and stuff like this. This is my adjusted gross income. This is the deduction you say I can get. This is how much I gave to charity. This is how much I actually owe. This is how much I already paid. This is either how much I still owe or how much of a refund I get. What is that form I just described?
1040.
That's the 1040. What's the form from the employee to the employer saying this is my family situation so you know how much to take out every month?
W-4.
That's the W-4. What's the tax deadline?
April 15th.
April 15th. How long should you keep your tax returns?
3 years.
3 years. Keep them for 3 years. What is money that the government acts as if you've already paid in taxes even though you ain't? Tax credits. Let's see. I don't think you're going to be asked this either, but on page 26 there's that 1099 form. That's if you earn interest on some kind of investment. You get a 1099. 2 things FICA tax goes toward.
Social Security and Medicare.
Social Security, Medicare. What percent does the employee give?
7.65%.
What percent does the employer give? 7.65%. But what if you're both? You're self-employed, you give
15.3%.
the full 15.3%, and that is what's going to be tested on. Have a great day.
Doesn't count.
It counts.
Okay.